I mean, this is a very, very easy thing to, put to rest. Judy Byington's report, she says Zim redemption notification and receipt of 800 numbers for currency exchangers to set up appointments at special redemption exchange centers and negotiate for higher rates, which is the program response, which I know very well, was expected sometime over the weekend and at least by Monday, April 15th.
At least.
Uh, at least by then, which was the start date for Tier 5, which is a new made up tier, the general public, to
I'm
exchange with
on tier
banks.
79.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So, how do we put this to rest? It didn't happen. It's not going to happen. Um, I know actually. I knew a guy who received 800 numbers one time from the FBI that we had called thousands of times, waiting for them to activate. They kept us at bay doing that for 3 weeks. I had received 800 numbers myself one time that I called for 2 weeks, waiting for them to activate. They never did. That whole agenda is never going to happen. It is not physically possible. It is not economically viable for the Zim to redeem at a rate of even a dollar or even a penny, to be honest. It's not even feasible because it would crash the economy. You know what? I actually, Dan, I have some bullet points I put together. I'm gonna help everybody out today, and I'm gonna share this with everybody. And you can post this here in just a second. But basically, these are I'm going to map out the plan for anyone listening, so that you can rest assured that you have the answers for what is taking place. If anybody challenges you as to how can you walk away from the RV, I'm going to give you the piece and the tools to do that right now. So I'm going to
Okay.
read them to you, and then I'll send them to Dan. Okay. So here is the plan. Someone asked me today about the GCR, right? And why isn't it going to happen? And they probably had a little bit of a attitude about it. So
Okay, this is the
I,
this is the GCR for the big lie segment.
right. But it's paramount because this is key to everything else. Because they also asked about Jasara and Nasara. They're like, why can't that happen? Okay, so here is the plan, play by play. So all of those things are part of an agenda by the order, right? So in order, this is how they go. First, the plan is devalue the U.S. dollar. Now this happened over time already, but then the way that you send the final blow is you flood the economy with massive amounts of low valued currency without a production line to demand it. In other words, you have the exchanges take place and you give everybody big US dollars, huge amounts, massive, more money than exists, right? You give them all this money and it doesn't have anything backing it, but you pretend it does, right? You say it does because you're basing it on the alleged in ground assets of Zimbabwe. However, Zimbabwe doesn't actually own those assets, so they can't even back their own currency. They certainly can't back a gazillion dollars in, you know, inflated 100 T notes. It's not possible. They don't have the assets. Even if they did take all their in ground assets, they don't have it. They can't back it. So you create the lie that it's backed, and everybody comes in for exchanges, right? And they go and they have this. And then what happens is you now have a flood of money into the economy, and it crashes the value of the U.S. dollar. All right. So this would force if the U.S. dollar crashed because the U.S. dollar is pegged to 156 or 36 countries, and then it affects 180 countries they use it on a regular daily basis. It would crash the world's economy overnight. Not only would it crash the world's economy, it would be a crash that is 100 times worse than the Great Depression because it would affect everybody on every level. Every amount of savings you had would immediately be rendered useless. All of your assets would your debts wouldn't change, right? But everything would crash overnight. Banks would crash, corporations would crash, business would crash. It would destroy everything. So because you have this massive crash, you'd have a global crisis that would be terrible. Now, this is what they want, right? They want a global crisis because this would be the catalyst, right? Now, when I say these things, you'll realize they're already in place, right? But this would be the catalyst that would activate and trigger the urgency of everything else, right? Because it's easy to ignore something like, if global warming was real, which it's not, okay, that's not real. That's a fabricated data, as Dan has already talked about. It's fabricated information. So if that were real, that would be a much more urgent struggle, right? Like if Cortez was right, we only had 12 years, before we'd all die, right? If that were real, that would be a much more urgent concern if there was no money and nobody could do anything. It would be so that's one. Another one would be a fake alien invasion, right? So think of how they've indoctrinated everyone, right? How many movies do you see about alien life forms that are positive? Rarely. Usually, when there's some kind of aliens here on the planet, it's because they're here to invade and kill us and eat us, and all those things. So they'd have some kind of fake alien invasion that they would create with various holographic images, or just bombs or whatever. They wouldn't even have to do that. They could just blow us up with jets, and then take the video footage and make it look like aliens, right? So that's another part of it. And another part is the Islamic takeover, right? So you take the whole this perverted version of Islamic values, right? Because Islamic people in and of themselves are not bad people, right? Necessarily, but they have been completely infiltrated and converted into basically a militant oppositional force, right? Believes that they have to take down the infidel, right? Which we are the infidel. It's the same way that the Kabbalah or the Talmud talks about Gentiles as being less than human, right? So that justifies them hating us. And then Christians can hate both of them because neither one of them are Christians. So, Christians pretty much have authority to hate them too. So now you have all of these different versions of religions, everyone fighting against each other. And now, you know, but now you have an economy that is now your enemy. So because the economy is your enemy, aliens are invading. Then the next thing you do is you release a disease that is now rampant. Right now, Ebola is something that becomes out of control. There's a zombie virus, all these things. So now the whole world is sick, and there's fight, and everybody's blaming someone else. Right, some different religious group, different political groups. All these different things are happening, but we have this massive enemy of disease and the environment and the economy. And all three of these are enemies that every human being can get behind to fight against, right? So we all come together behind the hate, right, and preservation, right, self-preservation. And so we're happy just to survive. So this is all part of the plan. This is the real plan. Okay, so the deep state would then move in. They capitalize on the global panic, right? So while it's a global panic, everybody's going crazy. The people who designed the panic, they're calm as can be. Well, one, because they're rich and they're prepared for this. They knew this was coming because they set it off, right?
Right, and
So
they're
they
in
come
New
in.
Zealand.
Yeah, right. They're in New Zealand. So they come in and they say, "Oh, ye the masses, you poor feeble-minded fools, let us come to the rescue again, and let us give you an option to save the day. We will buy back everything from you for pennies on the dollar, mind you, right? But not even pennies on the dollar. They will use a unbacked, useless digital currency. But to do this right, because you people have messed up everything with all your ways and the way you've hurt the environment, you people, and they blame it all on us, right? So every one of us, our nature is to just take responsibility. So we all take the responsibility. It's all our fault. Oh my gosh, what did I do? So we all now the whole world's in chaos, and now they blame it on the people. But luckily, the Rothschilds and the various dragon families, they come in and they say, here is cryptocurrency. We'll use cryptocurrency, but the only thing is you have to allow us to benevolently manage the entire financial system. And by us managing it, then we can keep your poor, stupid, feeble minded selves out of trouble because we have a master plan. We understand how to do it. And now by doing that, they have successfully implemented the New World Order. And in that, they give you a pittance to survive on because you've shown that you're a savage. You can't handle real money. You don't know what to do with it. So we're going to give you universal income, right? Universal income will give you just enough for the basic necessities, right? You'll be able to pay your bills and your house, and you will stay in your place, and you will not contribute or hurt anything else. Then, while this is happening, they declare global martial law. Global martial law comes in, and to maintain order while the transition is taking place, the United Nations has the authority to take over any government's military in the entire world. So the United Nations comes in, they take over everybody's military, And now the United Nations is one massive military, and being part of that military means you can shoot to kill at will because there is diseases that are spread so rampant and they're communicable, right? So you might have to kill some people because to save humanity, right? And you convince all the soldiers that's what's happening. You might have to kill these people because they are carrying a communicable disease, and if you have to put down your mom, you better do it because she could infect everybody else. So now you have global martial law going on, and they are committing genocide on a level you can't even fathom. Cities are being blown up to contain disease. All of this is happening because the trigger was the global currency reset. That's what set it all off. That's the plan. So that should put Judy Byington's silly ridiculousness to bed because um, that's not going to happen. What's happening is the the order, the divine plan. At the top of the order, there was always one who was in control, and there was 154 plus people at that level, and that was the M1 level that everyone talks about. And that's the one level that controlled the world's assets, that took possession of every piece of the world's assets in 2007, then shut it off. And once they had the assets, the plan was to kill off the population and then take those assets off planet and just devour the resources of the planet like a parasite. That was the plan. But in 2012, their contracts expired, and the way that the quantum mapping system, or the natural intelligence system, the way we affectionately call it, a way that it works, it would only recognize the DNA of the most human DNA on the planet, which is Kim Gogan, who is 99.8% bioidentical to the mitochondrion Eve. And in that, when she took control of the system, she learned for 2 years based on their behavior, and she thought that they were going to change their ways and rejuvenate humanity. And then she realized their entire plan was to kill and destroy humanity, steal the assets and resources. And at that level, though, that level of meetings, the Rothschilds weren't even invited because they were nothing more than head slaves. So, over a series of events, Kim redirected and transmuted that energy and decided, and this is what she said. She said, I was the one that said I would take humanity over all others. And she had the option to start over with a new humanity that wasn't brainwashed, wasn't mind controlled, wasn't filled with greed and hate and anger and disappointment, wasn't warmongering, hadn't been programmed to destroy ourselves. She had the option to go start brand new on a whole separate terra firma, and they took her there and gave her that option. And she chose you. She believes in you. Now, you tell me one of these jokers, one of these politicians, one of these gurus, one of these anything, any of these so called leaders, name one of them who would make that decision with you if they had the option. Not one of them.
They,
And so now
they
we're
haven't
on a
done it
different
all
path.
this time.
That's right. And now we are on a different path. And in this path, humanity is empowered to lead. Humanity is empowered to create. Humanity is empowered to reconnect with the planet, to remember who they are, to be rejuvenated, reborn, and live a life that is heroic and exemplary, to be exceptional, to be amazing. That is the world, and that's the foundation we're building from.
Indeed.
Indeed.